My name is Tessa Whitmore. I'm 32 years old. For 8 years, I paid my parents $2,400 a month in rent to live in their basement. They told me it was fair market rate. They told me they needed help with the mortgage. I believed them because that's what daughters do. Then last month, I ran into our neighbor while grabbing the mail. Mrs. Brennan smiled and said, "Your parents must be so proud owning that house outright." I smiled back. "What do you mean outright?" "The mortgage, dear, paid off since 2014. A full year before I started paying rent, 8 years, $230,400 for a mortgage that didn't exist." That night, I hired a forensic accountant. What he found didn't just explain where my money went. It revealed exactly who helped my parents hide it. I grew up in a beige colonial house in Bryn Mawr, a suburb of Philadelphia, where lawns are manicured and secrets are kept behind closed doors. From the outside, the Whiters looked like any other upper-middle-class family. My father, Richard, was a retired mechanical engineer who spoke in absolutes. My mother, Diane, was a homemaker who weaponized guilt like a surgical instrument. And then there was my sister Meredith, 3 years older, blonde, confident, and the gravitational center of our family's universe. Meredith was the golden child. I was the other one. Meredith got a full scholarship. My father announced at dinner when I was 17, the night I'd shown him my own acceptance letter. 50% tuition covered. That's great, I said, looking at my untouched chicken. I got 50%, so 50%. He didn't look up from his plate. Meredith got 100. I found out years later that Meredith never had a scholarship. My parents paid her tuition in full. They just told me she'd earned it so I'd know my place. That was the Whitmore hierarchy. Meredith was the investment. I was the afterthought. My mother's approach was softer, but no less devastating. "You're so sensitive, Tessa," she'd say whenever I cried. "You need to toughen up. The world isn't going to coddle you like we do." Coddle, as if providing basic shelter and food was an act of extraordinary generosity. By the time I left for college, I'd internalized a simple belief. I owed them for existing, for being less than Meredith, for being the daughter who required more effort to love. I didn't know then that belief would cost me almost $250,000. May 2015, I graduated with a degree in accounting and $42,000 in student loans. I'd applied to 63 jobs, got callbacks from 4, landed 1, an entry-level accountant position at a nonprofit called Horizon Community Foundation. Starting salary, $38,000 a year after taxes. That was about $2,600 a month. "You should live at home," my mother suggested over the phone. "Save money, pay off those loans." It made sense. Philadelphia rent was brutal, and the basement had its own entrance. I could have privacy. I could save. "There's just one thing," my father said when I arrived with my boxes. "We're not running a charity here." He slid a piece of paper across the kitchen table, typed official looking. $2,400 a month. That's fair market rate for this area. I stared at the number. That's almost my entire paycheck. "Then you'll learn to budget." He didn't blink. "We still have a mortgage to pay, Tessa. Did you think housing was free?" My mother placed a hand on my shoulder. "We're doing you a favor, sweetheart. Landlords don't give you home-cooked meals. Landlords don't do your laundry." She didn't do my laundry. I did my own laundry in the basement. But I didn't say that. I signed the paper. I set up automatic payments from my checking account. $2,400 the first of every month memo line. Rent. I told myself it was temporary. A year, maybe 2. I'd pay down my loans, build my savings, and move out. 8 years later, I was still there. And every single one of those automatic transfers was time-stamped, documented, and waiting in my bank records. I just didn't know yet how much that paper trail would matter. The years blurred together like highway mile markers. I worked. I got promoted. Entry-level accountant became senior accountant, became finance officer. My salary climbed from $38,000 to $72,000. I learned grant compliance, audit procedures, nonprofit tax law, but my rent never changed. Inflation, my father said when I suggested a reduction. "You're lucky we're not raising it." Meanwhile, Meredith flourished. She became a CPA at a mid-sized firm, then went independent. She bought a condo in Center City, a condo our parents put down the deposit for. Meredith works so hard, my mother said. She deserves a little help getting started. I was 30 years old, had paid over $200,000 in rent, and was sleeping in a basement with a window that looked directly into a drainage ditch. But Meredith deserved help getting started. The worst part wasn't the money. It was the silence. I wanted to scream, to ask why I was paying market rate while my sister got a free down payment, to demand an explanation for the blatant inequality. But every time I opened my mouth, the same fear closed my throat. What if they stopped loving me entirely? So I stayed quiet. I kept paying. I told myself that family meant sacrifice, and sacrifice meant I was a good daughter. Then one Sunday in October, I saw something on Meredith's Instagram that cracked something inside me. A photo of her condo. Caption: 2 years in my little sanctuary. So grateful to Mom and Dad for making this possible. 2 years. 2 years of free housing gifted by the same parents who charged me $2,400 a month. I didn't explode. Not yet. But something shifted, and 3 weeks later, I moved into my own apartment. October 15th, 6 months after I'd finally moved out, I came back to my parents' house to help with fall yard work because even from my own apartment, I couldn't fully escape the guilt. My mother had called 3 times about the gutters. Your father's back isn't what it used to be. I was pulling dead leaves from the flower bed when Dorothy Brennan appeared at the fence. 72 years old, white hair pinned in a bun, a watering can in her weathered hands. Tessa, haven't seen you in a while. Hey, Mrs. Brennan, just helping out. Your parents must be so proud. She smiled warmly. Owning that house outright. I paused, towel in hand. I'm sorry. What? The mortgage, dear, paid off since 2014. Your father threw a little party. Invited the whole block. I remember because Harold was still alive and he said, we should pay ours off, too. She chuckled at the memory. My hands went cold. You're sure it was 2014? Oh, absolutely. Spring of 2014. Your father showed us the paperwork. Said it was the best day of his life. I smiled. I think I said something polite. I don't remember exactly because my mind was doing arithmetic. Spring 2014. The mortgage was paid off in spring 2014. I started paying rent in June 2015. That night in my apartment, I opened my laptop and searched the Montgomery County property records. Public database free access. There it was. The Whitmore residence mortgage satisfied. April 12, 2014. No outstanding liens, no debt, nothing. For 8 years, my parents had collected $2,400 a month from me to pay a mortgage that didn't exist. $230,400. I sat in the dark for a long time. Then I started making calls. Lucatron had been my best friend since freshman orientation. Now she was a paralegal at a family law firm in Philadelphia. Okay, she said slowly after I'd explained everything. Let me make sure I understand. Your parents charged you rent for 8 years, claiming they needed it for the mortgage, but the mortgage was already paid off. Yes, and they never disclosed that to you. No, Tessa, she exhaled. That's not just morally disgusting. It might be tax fraud. I blinked. What? Rental income. If your parents collected over $200,000 in rent, they were supposed to report it to the IRS. If they didn't, she let the implication hang. But it's family. Does that matter? A transaction is a transaction. The IRS doesn't care if you're renting to your daughter or a stranger. She gave me a name. Marcus Webb, forensic accountant, specializes in family financial disputes. 3 days later, I sat in Marcus' office. In King of Prussia. He was a black man in his 50s with reading glasses and a voice like gravel wrapped in velvet. I handed him a folder. 8 years of bank statements. Every transfer is documented. Memo says rent. He flipped through the pages, pausing occasionally to make notes. And the property records, he asked. Downloaded from the county website Mortgage Satisfied in 2014. He looked up at me. Who prepares your parents' tax returns? The question hit me like a slap. My sister, I said quietly. Meredith. She's a CPA. She's been doing their taxes for years. Marcus removed his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Miss Whitmore, if your parents didn't report this income and your sister prepared those returns, he paused. You may have more leverage than you realize. The invitation arrived 3 days after my meeting with Marcus. Cream-colored cardstock, gold embossed lettering. You are cordially invited to celebrate the engagement of Meredith and Whitmore and Bradley Harrison Ashford III. Briarwood Country Club. Saturday, November 18th, 6:00 p.m. Bradley Ashford. Old money. His father, Bradley Sr., was an estate attorney who'd built a practice representing Philadelphia's wealthiest families. The Ashfords were the kind of people who had their wedding announcements in the society pages, and Meredith was marrying into them. My phone rang. Mother Tessa, you got the invitation? Just opened it. You're coming? Of course. The Ashfords will be there. All of them. We need to present a united family front. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'll be there. Good. And there's one more thing. She paused. Your father, and I want you to say a few words about Meredith, about how she's been such a wonderful role model for you. My grip tightened on the phone. You want me to give a speech? Just a short one, something heartfelt about sisterhood. I closed my eyes. Did you ask me or tell me? Tessa, don't be difficult. It's one speech. The Ashfords will be watching. We can't have fine, I said. I'll prepare something. Thank you, sweetheart. I knew you'd understand. After she hung up, I sat very still. They wanted me to stand on a stage in front of 120 people and publicly praise the sister who had helped hide a $4 million fraud. They had no idea what they were setting up. I called Lucia. The engagement party is in 3 weeks. I said, I need you to be there. As what? A witness. November 13th, 5 days before the party. Marcus called at 4:47 p.m. The report is ready. You need to see this in person. I drove to his office in rush hour traffic, hands tight on the wheel. The sun was setting by the time I arrived, painting the strip mall parking lot in shades of orange and gray. He was waiting with a manila folder thick enough to prop open a door. I'll give you the summary, he said. Your parents reported zero rental income from 2015 to 2023. No Schedule E filed. No mention of the property being used for rental purposes. Even though I was paying them every month. Even though you were paying them $2,400 every month with documented bank transfers to a property they owned outright. He slid a page toward me. Now, here's the interesting part. Every one of those tax returns was signed by the same preparer. I looked at the signature line. Meredith A. Whitmore, CPA, license NRA PA 87542. She knew, I whispered. She didn't just know, she facilitated it. A CPA who signs a return certifies they've reviewed the information and it's accurate to the best of their knowledge. Marcus leaned back. If this goes to the IRS, your sister's license is at risk. I stared at her signature. The confident loops and slashes. The same handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards that always felt pre-functor. What are my options? You can file a Form 211 IRS whistleblower. If they collect, you'd be entitled to a percentage, he paused. Or you can use this information however you see fit. It's yours. Everything here came from your own bank records and public documents. I took the folder. The party is in 5 days, I said. And I just got invited to give a speech. November 15th. 3 days out. My father called, which was unusual. He preferred to delegate emotional labor to my mother. Tessa, your mother tells me you're speaking at the party. That's right. Good. A long pause. I'll be saying a few words as well about the family, about contributions. Something in his tone made the hair on my neck stand up. What kind of contributions? Just acknowledging everyone who helped make this night possible, including you. Another pause. We're very grateful for your support over the years. He hung up without saying goodbye. I understood immediately. They were going to publicly frame me as someone who'd been helped by the family, someone who owed them, not the other way around. In front of the Ashfords, in front of everyone. They'd paint me as the dependent daughter who should be grateful. It was a setup, a public pressure campaign. 2 hours later, Meredith called. Hey. Her voice was strange, tighter than usual. I just wanted to check in about the party. What about it? Just mom and dad can be a little intense. If they say anything weird, just roll with it, okay? They mean well. I almost laughed. Do they, Tessa? A sharp exhale. Look, I know things haven't always been fair, but it's my engagement. Can we just get through this without drama? I'm not planning any drama, Meredith. Good. That's good. She paused. I'll see you Saturday. After she hung up, I texted Lucia. Something's off. Meredith called to preemptively manage me. She sounds scared. Lucia replied. Scared of what? I stared at the screen. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Whatever trap they were setting, I needed to be ready. Friday night, the evening before the party, I sat cross-legged on my apartment floor. Marcus reports spread around me like a crime scene. Yellow sticky notes marked the key pages. The property records showing mortgage satisfaction. The 8 years of bank statements. The unsigned copy of my parents' 2019 tax return with 0 rental income declared. Lucia had helped me game out scenarios. Scenario A, minor humiliation. Dad makes a vague comment about family support. I smile, deflect, leave early. No confrontation. Scenario B, moderate humiliation. They explicitly frame me as someone who received help from the family. I correct the record calmly, provide the real numbers, maintain composure. Scenario C, full attack. They try to shame me in front of everyone. For Scenario C, I'd written 3 paragraphs, memorized them, each one precise, factual, devastating. I wasn't bringing the forensic report. Too aggressive. But I had my phone with screenshots of the property records and bank statements. I had Marcus's number on speed dial. And I had something else. The truth. My phone buzzed. Lucia, still in. Still in table 7, back of the room. You sure about this? I looked around my apartment. Small, quiet, mine. No basement windows looking into drainage ditches. No rent payments disappearing into my parents' account. I've never been more sure of anything. Okay, I'll be there. What if nothing happens? I thought about it for a long moment. Then nothing happens. I give a polite speech. I leave. I move on with my life. And if something does happen, I type slowly. Then I stop being the daughter who stays silent. I didn't sleep well that night. But when I woke up, I was ready. Whatever they threw at me, I wasn't going to flinch. Briarwood Country Club was everything you'd expect. Vaulted ceilings, crystal chandeliers, staff, and crisp white shirts. The engagement party was held in the Grand Terrace room where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a manicured golf course turning amber in the November dusk. I wore a navy dress I'd bought specifically for this occasion. Simple, elegant, forgettable. Nothing that would attract attention before I was ready. 120 guests. I counted them as I walked in. The Ashfords dominated the front tables. Bradley Sr. was a broad-shouldered man with silver hair and the confident posture of someone who'd never lost an argument. His wife Catherine wore pearls and a practiced smile. Bradley Jr. Bradley III technically stood beside. Meredith, handsome in an unremarkable way, seemingly unaware that his fiancée was radiating tension. My parents intercepted me near the entrance. Tessa. My mother's smile was too wide. You look nice. Come meet the Ashfords properly. In a minute, I spotted Karen Ostrowski at one of the middle tables and felt my stomach tighten. My boss here. Why was my boss here? Then I remembered Ashford Foundation. Major donors to Horizon Community Foundation. Of course, Karen waved. I waved back, trying not to look like someone carrying a bomb. Table 7, my mother said, gesturing vaguely toward the back. Near the service entrance. Not at the family table, not with the Ashfords. Back by the kitchen where they put guests they needed present, but didn't want prominent. I nodded. Got it. In the back corner, Lucia was already seated, nursing a glass of wine. She raised it slightly when she saw me. Ready? Her eyes asked. I took my seat, smoothed my dress, and waited. The night was just beginning. Dinner was an elaborate affair. Filet mignon, roasted vegetables, a wine selection that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. I ate mechanically, watching the front of the room. At 8:15, the clinking of a spoon against crystal silenced the murmur of conversation. My father stood at the microphone, champagne glass in hand, looking every bit the proud patriarch. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us to celebrate Meredith and Bradley. Polite applause, camera ones raised. Diane and I have been blessed with 2 wonderful daughters. He paused, and I felt the room's attention shift. Meredith, of course, has always been exceptional. Valedictorian CPA, now marrying into one of Philadelphia's finest families. More applause, Meredith beamed. But I also want to acknowledge our younger daughter, Tessa. My spine straightened. For the past 8 years, Tessa has lived with us, and during that time, she has contributed significantly to our household. He smiled, a smile I'd seen 1,000 times. The one that preceded a knife. We're very grateful for her financial support. It's allowed our family to thrive. I felt the room's eyes on me. Sympathetic, confused, some pitying. Oh, the younger daughter still lives at home and she helps pay their bills. How sad. He wasn't done. As Tessa knows, family means sacrifice. And we hope that spirit of generosity will continue, especially as Meredith begins this new chapter. He raised his glass. To family, the room echoed. I didn't move. My hands were clasped in my lap, very still. Bradley Sr. was watching my parents with an expression I couldn't quite read. Interest, calculation. Tessa, my father said into the microphone. We'd love for you to come up and say a few words about your sister. The room turned to look at me. I smiled. I stood, and I walked toward the stage. Lucia's hand brushed my arm as I passed. You okay? I didn't answer. I was already calculating my next sentence. The microphone was cold in my hand. 120 faces, crystal chandeliers, the Ashfords in the front row, Bradley Sr.'s gaze locked on me like I was a witness on a stand. Thank you, Dad. My voice was steady. Years of finance presentations had trained me for this. And thank you all for being here tonight. I paused, let the silence settle. My father mentioned that I've contributed financially to our family. That's true. I have. I smiled slightly. For 8 years, I paid $2,400 a month in rent to live in my parents' basement. A murmur rippled through the room. If you do the math, that's $230,400. I watched my father's smile freeze. I paid it because my parents told me they needed help with the mortgage. They said it was fair market rate, and I believed them. My mother's face had gone the color of old paper. It wasn't until recently that I learned something interesting. I kept my voice conversational, almost casual. According to public property records, available to anyone with internet access, my parents paid off their mortgage in April of 2014. Silence. That was a full year before I started paying rent. I let that land, watched it ripple through the room like a stone dropped in still water. I'm not saying this to ruin anyone's evening. I'm saying it because my father just implied that I owe this family something, that I should continue to support them. I met his eyes directly, and I want everyone here to know the truth. Bradley Sr. stood up, his voice carried across the room without a microphone. You're saying you paid over $200,000 in rent for a property with no mortgage? Yes. And you have documentation? 8 years of bank statements, every transfer time-stamped. He turned to look at my parents at Meredith. The room had become very, very still. My father grabbed the microphone from the stand. Tessa, what are you doing? His voice cracked. This is your sister's engagement party. My mother rushed toward the stage. She's confused. She's had a difficult year. Work stress. You know how it is. I'm not confused. I kept my voice level. And I haven't had work stress. I'm a finance officer. I understand numbers very well. This is a private family matter. My father's face was reining. You're embarrassing yourself. You brought it up publicly. I didn't raise my voice. You stood at this microphone and implied I owed you something. I'm simply providing context. Meredith finally spoke. She was still seated, but her voice carried across the silent room. Tessa, have you been drinking? I almost laughed. I've had half a glass of wine. You can check with the server. Richard. Bradley Sr.'s voice cut through the chaos. He was still standing, arms folded. If what your daughter is saying is true, if you collected rental payments on a paid-off property, that's not a private family matter. That's a financial disclosure issue. My father sputtered. It's complicated. There were expenses, maintenance, utilities, $230,000 in maintenance. Bradley Sr.'s eyebrows rose. This is insane. My mother turned to the crowd. She's always been jealous of Meredith. Always. This is just Diane. Bradley Sr.'s wife, Catherine, had stood up too. Her voice was ice. Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere more private. I stepped back from the microphone. I'm done, I said. I just wanted the truth to be heard. As I walked off the stage, I saw Meredith's face. She was pale, frozen. Her eyes weren't angry. They were terrified. And I realized she knew exactly what I was about to find out. Quick pause before I tell you what happened next. If you've ever stood in a room full of people who should love you, but instead watched them twist the truth to make you the villain, you know exactly how my chest felt in that moment. If that's you, drop a comment. You're not alone. And if you want to see what happened when Meredith cornered me on the balcony and who else was listening, keep watching. Now, here's what happened next. I didn't run. I walked through the tables, past the whispers, toward the French doors leading to the balcony. Lucia intercepted me near the exit. You okay? I need air. Go. I'll watch from here. The November night was cold. The golf course stretched out below, a dark expanse punctuated by landscape lights. I gripped the stone railing and breathed. I'd done it. Said the words I'd swallowed for 8 years, and the sky hadn't fallen. My phone buzzed. Marcus Webb, I answered. Miss Whitmore, I just received confirmation from a source at the state licensing board. His voice was clinical, precise. Your sister didn't just sign those returns. She was the one who set up the account structure, the one that made sure the rental income never appeared on any documents. I closed my eyes. She designed it. She was more than complicit. She was the architect. Can you send me that confirmation? Already in your email. I hung up and opened my inbox. There it was. A forwarded memo from a forensic colleague who'd worked with the Pennsylvania CPA board. Not the smoking gun, but close enough to know that if I ever filed a complaint, Meredith's license would be under review. The balcony door opened behind me. I didn't turn around. Tessa, Meredith's voice. We need to talk. I slipped my phone into my pocket and finally faced her. She was standing in the doorway, backlit by the glow of the party. Her makeup was perfect. Her eyes were not. Okay, I said. Let's talk. She stepped onto the balcony and let the door close behind her. We were alone for now. Meredith crossed her arms. The wind caught her hair, but she didn't seem to notice. What the hell was that in there? The truth? The truth? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You just humiliated our entire family in front of Bradley's parents, in front of everyone. Dad humiliated me first. I just corrected the record. Corrected that. She stopped, took a breath. When she spoke again, her voice was lower, almost pleading. Tessa, do you have any idea what you've done? I know exactly what I've done. This could affect my career, my license. I tilted my head. Why would the truth about Mom and Dad's rental income affect your CPA license? The color drained from her face. You know, I said quietly. You know, because you designed it. You set up the accounts. You signed every return that pretended I didn't exist. That's not I didn't. The state licensing board has questions, Meredith. Not because of me, because someone somewhere noticed an irregularity. But if this goes further, I let the implication hang. You can't do this. Her voice broke. I'm getting married. Bradley's family. They'll walk away if there's any scandal. Do you understand what you're destroying? Do you understand what you helped take from me? $230,000, 8 years of my life. I thought you knew, she hissed. I thought you were in on it. That you agreed to help Mom and Dad. I stared at her. I was paying rent, Meredith, in a house with no mortgage. Does that sound like someone who agreed? She had no answer. The balcony door opened again, and there stood our parents. Behind them, Karen Ostrowski. My father stepped onto the balcony first, his face a mask of controlled fury. Tessa, we need to talk privately. He glanced at the door where Karen lingered. Family business. It stopped being private when you made it a toast. I said, let's not make this worse than it needs to be. My mother's voice was saccharine. We can work this out like a family. How do you propose we do that? My father straightened his jacket. We're willing to reimburse you a portion of what you paid as a gesture of goodwill. A portion? $50,000. He said it like he was being generous. To put this behind us, I calculated quickly. 50,000 out of 230,000, less than 22%. And in return, you stop this nonsense. You don't file anything with the IRS. You don't talk to lawyers. His jaw tightened. And you certainly don't embarrass us again. My mother added softly, "Sweetheart, think about what you're doing. You're going to tear this family apart. The family that charged me a $4 million in fake rent. We didn't charge you anything fake." My father started. "The mortgage was paid off. You told me you needed help. You lied. We had expenses. Then show me the receipts." Silence. That's what I thought. The balcony door opened wider. Karen stepped through, her expression unreadable. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said calmly. "But I heard voices. I wanted to make sure everything was all right." My father turned surprised. "This is a private conversation with my employee." Karen's voice was pleasant but firm. "Tessa, do you need me to stay?" I looked at her, then at my parents. "Yes," I said. "Please stay." Karen positioned herself beside me, close enough to signal alliance, but far enough to observe. My father's confidence faltered. "This really isn't your concern." "Tessa is my director of finance candidate," Karen said evenly. "Anything affecting her well-being is my concern." Director of finance candidate. That was news to me, but I didn't let it show. "Mrs. I'm sorry, what was your name?" My mother asked, her voice strained. "Karen Ostrowski, Executive Director of Horizon Community Foundation. I believe the Ashford Foundation is one of your donors." She smiled pleasantly. "Lovely event." The implication was clear. The Ashfords were here. Karen was here. Whatever happened next would be seen by people who mattered. My father cleared his throat. "We're just having a family discussion." It sounded more like an offer. Karen said $50,000, was it? In exchange for silence about financial irregularities. The color drained from my mother's face. "I wasn't eavesdropping," Karen continued. "But the balcony door is thin and voices carry when emotions run high." My father opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "This is none of your Richard." The voice came from behind us. Bradley Sr. stood in the doorway, his wife beside him. His expression was the carefully neutral face of a man who'd spent 40 years practicing law. "I think," he said slowly, "we need to have a conversation, all of us." Inside Bradley, "This is a family matter," my mother started. "No," he said, "it's not. Not anymore." He looked at Meredith, who was shrinking against the balcony railing. "When my son's fiancée is potentially implicated in tax fraud, it becomes my matter." Meredith made a sound like she'd been struck. The party was unraveling, and I hadn't even played my final card. We reconvened in a small private room off the main hall. White tablecloths, untouched champagne flutes. The door closed with a soft click. Bradley Sr. stood at the head of the table. No one had asked him to take charge, but no one questioned it either. "Let me understand the situation." His voice was measured. Courtroom steady. "Tessa, you're claiming you paid your parents $2,400 a month in rent for 8 years. I'm not claiming. I have bank records. And the property had no mortgage during this period." "Correct. Paid off in 2014. Public record." He turned to my parents. "Richard, Diane, did you report this rental income on your taxes?" My father's face was tight. "That's a private matter. It's a yes or no question." Silence. Bradley Sr.'s expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. He turned to Meredith. "Meredith, you're a licensed CPA. You've prepared your parents' tax returns for the past several years, correct?" Meredith nodded, unable to speak. "Did you include Schedule E rental income from the basement?" It wasn't yes or no. "No." Her voice was barely a whisper. Bradley Sr. exhaled slowly. He looked at his son, then at Catherine, then back at my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Whitmore, I've spent 40 years in estate law. I know what financial fraud looks like, and I know what happens when it comes to light. This is a family misunderstanding." My mother started. "It's a federal matter." His voice cut through her protest like a scalpel. And I need to think very carefully about what kind of family my son is marrying into. He turned to Bradley Jr. We need to talk privately. They stepped outside. Meredith looked like she might faint. The main ballroom had changed when I returned. The string quartet still played, but the conversations had fragmented. Clusters of guests whispered behind raised champagne glasses. Eyes tracked me as I walked to table 7. What happened? Lucia asked. Bradley Sr. is talking to his son privately. About Meredith, about whether he wants his son to marry into a family with potential tax fraud. Lucia let out a low whistle. That's nuclear. They built the bomb. I just pressed the button. At the front of the room, my parents stood alone. No one approached them. The Ashfords' table was empty, and the social vacuum was impossible to ignore. A woman in a black dress approached me. Mid-50s, sharp eyes, silver earrings that caught the light. Excuse me, you're Tessa Whitmore. Yes, I'm Sandra Holloway. I'm on the Pennsylvania CPA board, also a friend of Catherine Ashford's. My stomach tightened. I see. I'm not here in any official capacity, she said, her voice low. But I heard your speech, and I have to say, if what you described is accurate, your sister has a problem. I'm not trying to destroy her career. I understand. But you should know that complaints sometimes originate from unexpected places. She glanced toward the front of the room, especially when prominent families are paying attention. She nodded and walked away. Lucia stared at me. Was that someone who just made a note of Meredith's license number? Probably. Across the room, my parents were arguing and hushed furious tones. My father's face was scarlet. My mother kept glancing around, desperate to see who was watching. Everyone was watching. The engagement party was officially over, and the consequences were just beginning. I was walking toward the exit when my father stepped into my path. His face was a mask of barely controlled rage. Behind him, the party had disintegrated into pockets of awkward small talk and hasty departures. You're not leaving. I'm finished here. Finished. His voice cracked. You've destroyed everything. Your sister's wedding, our reputation, and for what? For the truth. The truth? He spat the word. You know what the truth is, Tessa? The truth is that we raised you, fed you, clothed you, gave you a roof over your head when you couldn't afford anything else, and charged me $230,000 for it. That was fair. The mortgage was paid off. You lied to me for 8 years. His hand shot out, grabbing my arm. Lower your voice. I looked down at his grip, then back at his face. Let go of me. Something in my tone must have penetrated because his fingers loosened. But he didn't step back. You've just made an enemy of your own family, he said quietly. You understand that? After tonight, you have nothing. No parents, no sister, no one. I straightened my spine. I haven't had a family in a long time. I've had landlords who called themselves parents. How dare? All communication from this point forward goes through my attorney. His face went slack. Attorney? You're threatening to sue us? I'm protecting myself. I pulled my arm free. Something I should have done years ago. Karen appeared at my elbow. Tessa, the car's waiting. I looked at my father one last time. The man who taught me that love was conditional. That my value was measured in dollars. That silence was the price of belonging. Goodbye, Dad. I walked out. I didn't look back. In the parking lot, under the cold November stars, I let out a breath I'd been holding for 8 years. It was over. Or rather, it was just beginning. 3 days after the party, my phone rang at 9:47 a.m. I didn't recognize the number. Pennsylvania area code. This is Agent Torres with the IRS field office in Philadelphia. The voice was clipped. Professional. Am I speaking with Tessa Irene Whitmore? I sat down slowly. Yes, Ms. Whitmore. We're conducting an inquiry regarding rental income associated with a property in Vinmar. Our records indicate you may have relevant information. I didn't file a complaint. We're aware the complaint came from another source. A pause. Paper shuffling. But your bank records have been flagged as potentially relevant. We'd like to schedule an interview. I called Marcus the moment we hung up. I didn't file. I said, did you? No, I told you I wouldn't act without your authorization. He paused. But let me make some calls. An hour later, he called back. I found your whistleblower. Who? Dorothy Brennan, your parents' neighbor. I sank onto my couch. Mrs. Dot. She called my office last week asking how to report neighbors who commit tax fraud. I gave her the general information, told her it was complicated. He chuckled dryly. Apparently, it wasn't complicated enough to stop her. Mrs. Dot, 72 years old, watering cans and white hair. She'd seen me grow up, seen me come and go from that basement, and when she found out what my parents had done, she'd done something about it. Miss Whitmore, Marcus said, "You still there?" "Yeah," I wiped my eyes. "Yeah, I'm here." The IRS moves slow, but they move. Your parents will be audited. Meredith's signature is on those returns. He paused. This is out of your hands now in the best possible way. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat in the quiet and let myself breathe. The audit was announced in January. I learned about it secondhand. Lucia's firm handled family law cases, and word traveled fast in legal circles. Full audit, she reported over coffee. 8 years of returns. Your parents had to hire a tax attorney, and apparently he's not cheap. How bad is it? The IRS calculated approximately $45,000 in back taxes, penalties, and interest. And that's before the state gets involved. $45,000. A fraction of what they'd taken from me, but enough to hurt. What about Meredith? Lucia's expression shifted. The CPA board sent her a letter of inquiry. It's not public yet, but she's definitely under review. Is she going to lose her license? Probably not. First offense, she can claim she trusted her parents' information, but she'll get a formal reprimand, mandatory ethics training, supervised practice for 2 years. Lucia shrugged. In the accounting world, that's a scarlet letter. I stared into my coffee. The wedding postponed indefinitely. The Ashfords released a statement about private family matters requiring attention. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. How do you feel? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't feel happy. No, but I don't feel sad either. I looked up. I feel lighter, like something heavy has been lifted off my shoulders. Guilt, maybe, or maybe just the weight of pretending. I took a sip. I spent 8 years trying to be a good daughter, trying to earn something that was never for sale. And now I'm just trying to be a good person for myself. The audit would grind on. The consequences would ripple outward. But for the first time in years, none of it depended on me staying silent. The email arrived on a Tuesday evening. Subject line, "Please, Tessa, I don't understand why you're doing this to us. Your father hasn't slept in weeks. The attorneys are costing us everything. Meredith's wedding is ruined, and she won't speak to anyone. We gave you everything. We raised you. We loved you, and this is how you repay us. If you have any decency left, you'll stop this. Call off the IRS. Tell them you made a mistake. We can go back to how things were. We can be a family again. Please, sweetheart, don't destroy us." Mom, I read it 3 times. The guilt hooks were familiar. The manipulation dressed up as maternal concern. The suggestion that I had the power to stop a federal investigation, as if the IRS answered to disgruntled daughters. I started typing, then deleted it, started again. Mom, I didn't file the IRS complaint. I don't have the power to withdraw it. Even if I did, I wouldn't. You told me for 8 years that you needed my money for the mortgage. That was a lie. And when I asked for the truth, you offered me $50,000 to stay quiet. That's not family. That's a transaction. I'm not trying to destroy you. I'm trying to live honestly. If the truth destroys you, that's not my fault. It's yours. All future communication should go through my attorney. Tessa. I hit send. Then I blocked her email address. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was clean. I looked around my apartment. Small, modest, entirely mine. No one monitoring my rent, no one tallying my debts. For the first time in my adult life, I owed no one anything. And it felt like freedom. Before I continue, have you ever had to block a parent's number, their email, watch the messages pile up in a folder you'll never open? It's one of the hardest things you can do and one of the most necessary. If you're there right now in that impossible space between love and self-preservation, hit the like button. You're not betraying anyone. You're surviving. Now, let me tell you what happened next. The wedding, Meredith's license, and an unexpected letter that made me cry. March, for months after the engagement party. The news came through Lucia, who'd heard it from a friend who worked at Bradley Sr.'s firm. The wedding is officially off. I sat down my coffee officially. Bradley Sr. sat Meredith down last week, told her it wasn't personal, but his family couldn't afford the association with an ongoing federal investigation. She paused. Apparently, Bradley Jr. wanted to stick it out. His father overruled him. I tried to feel something. Triumph maybe, or vindication. Instead, I just felt tired. 3 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered anyway. Tessa Meredith's voice. Hoarse. Hollow. How did? You get this number? Lucia's office. I told them it was an emergency. A long pause. Are you happy now? I sat down on my couch. No. I'm not happy, Meredith. I didn't do this to make you suffer. Then why? Because I deserve the truth and you knew the truth for 8 years and never said a word. Silence on the line. I could hear her breathing. I thought you knew, she said finally, her voice breaking. I thought you agreed to help them. You never complained, never pushed back. Because I trusted you. I trusted all of you. I closed my eyes and you let me believe a lie while I paid for your silence. Tessa, I'm not going to apologize for telling the truth, and I'm not going to pretend that we can go back to the way things were. I took a breath. I hope you figure things out. I genuinely do, but I can't be part of it. I hung up. Then I sat in the silence and let the weight of that conversation settle. Some bridges don't get rebuilt. Some bridges shouldn't. The Pennsylvania State Board of Accountancy released its decision in April. I received a copy because I'd been listed as an informant, technically accurate, even though I hadn't filed the original complaint. Marcus forwarded the document with a brief note. This is public record now. The findings were clear. Meredith and Whitmore, CPA license NAR 087542, is hereby issued a formal reprimand for failure to exercise due diligence in the preparation of tax returns for clients. Richard and Diane Whitmore findings. Failure to include Schedule E rental income. Failure to verify accuracy of reported financial information. Breach of professional ethical standards. Remediation requirements. 40 hours of ethics training within 6 months. 2 years of supervised practice. Public notation on CPA license database. She didn't lose her license, but she might as well have. In the accounting world, a public reprimand is a career killer. Every potential employer, every client, every background check would pull up those findings. Failure to exercise due diligence would follow her forever. Lucia called that evening. You heard? Yeah. She applied to 3 Big 4 firms last month, all rejected after the background check. I felt a flicker of something. Not satisfaction, more like the end of a long, suspended breath. What's she doing now? Working for a small firm in Delaware. Payroll processing entry level. Meredith, the golden child, the valedictorian, the one who was supposed to be exceptional, was processing payroll in Delaware. I didn't gloat. There was no joy in watching someone fall. But there was a grim justice in knowing that actions had consequences, that the lies my parents built couldn't stand forever. The truth has a weight. Eventually, it always breaks through. After I blocked my mother's email, the silence was absolute. No phone calls, no letters, no unexpected visits, just nothing. Thanksgiving came and went. No invitation. Christmas passed, no card. My birthday in February arrived without acknowledgement. I'd expected this to hurt. I'd spent my whole life bending myself into shapes that might earn their love, their approval, even their acknowledgement. The absence of it should have felt like a wound. Instead, it felt like putting down a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. I spent Thanksgiving with Lucia's family, loud, chaotic, her grandmother insisting I eat thirds. Christmas was a trip to Vermont with friends from work. My birthday was dinner at a small Italian restaurant. Just me and Lucia and 2 bottles of wine. You okay? Lucia asked, watching me stare at the candle on my tiramisu. Yeah, better than okay, actually. You don't miss them. I thought about it. really sat with the question. I miss who I thought they were, who I wanted them to be. I blew out the candle, but I don't miss who they actually are. That's growth. Is it? Or is it just survival? Lisha shrugged. Maybe they're the same thing. The weeks turned into months. The audit concluded. My parents paid their penalties. Meredith moved to Delaware. The Ashford engagement became a cautionary tale in certain Philadelphia social circles. And I built a life, a small life, maybe quiet, unremarkable by any external measure, but mine, completely unapologetically mine, one evening in early March. I checked my email and found a message from an address I didn't recognize from Brennan1952ol.com. Subject, a note from your neighbor. I clicked it open. Dear Tessa, I hope this reaches you. Lucia helped me figure out how to send an email. Technology is not my friend, I'm afraid. I want you to know why I called the IRS. I've lived next door to your parents for 30 years. I watched you grow up. I saw you mowing their lawn at 14 while Meredith went to the pool. I saw you carrying groceries while she got her nails done. I saw you coming and going from that basement year after year, working yourself to the bone while they treated you like a tenant. When I learned what they did, taking your money for a mortgage that didn't exist, something in me broke. I'm 72 years old. I've seen a lot of unfairness in this world. But I've also learned that silence makes us complicit, and I couldn't stay silent about this. I didn't tell you beforehand because I didn't want you to feel responsible. This was my choice, my conscience. You're a good girl, Tessa. You always were. Too good for parents who couldn't see what they had. If you're ever in the neighborhood and want to stop by for tea, my door is open. I make a very good lemon cake. With love. I read the email 3 times. Then I cried. Not the way I'd cried when I found out about the mortgage. Those were tears of shock and betrayal. This was different. These were the tears of someone who'd been seen, someone who'd been quietly witnessed all along. I typed a reply. Thank you, Mrs. Brennan. I would love to come for tea. She responded within the hour. Wonderful. This Sunday, 2 o'clock, I said yes. Some families are born, others are found. Sometimes they find you first. Karen called me into her office on a Tuesday morning. I walked in expecting a routine check-in. Instead, she gestured to the chair across from her desk with an expression I couldn't quite read. Close the door. I did. The board met last week, she said. We've made a decision about the director of finance position. I kept my face neutral. I'd applied 3 months ago, but the process had been slow, complicated by budget concerns and organizational restructuring. Tessa, I've worked with a lot of talented people over the years, but very few have your combination of technical skill and personal integrity. I blinked. I'm sorry. The night at Briarwood, she leaned back. I watched you handle an impossible situation with grace. You could have screamed. You could have thrown things. Instead, you stated facts, maintained composure, and walked away with your dignity intact. I didn't feel very dignified at the time. That's what made it impressive. She slid a piece of paper across the desk, an offer letter. The job is yours. Director of Finance. Salary increase of 32%. Start date whenever you're ready. I looked at the numbers, then back at Karen. I don't know what to say. Say yes, and then go celebrate with your friends. She smiled, a rare, genuine expression. You've earned this, Tessa. Not because of what happened with your family, but because of how you've handled yourself through all of it. I signed the letter. Walking out of her office, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not the desperate performative pride of trying to earn approval, just quiet, solid pride in who I'd become. The girl who used to live in a basement was going to be a director. Some comebacks don't need an audience. 1 year later, I'm writing this from my apartment, the same small one I moved into when I left my parents' basement, though I finally hung some pictures and bought a real couch. The window looks out on a quiet street lined with maple trees. In fall, the leaves turn golden red and drift down like paper lanterns. It's not a penthouse. It's not impressive, but no one charges me for the privilege of living here. No one tracks my payments or uses my existence as leverage. It's mine. My parents and I don't speak. I don't know if they've moved out of the Binmar house, and I don't need to know. Every few months, a letter arrives from my mother's attorney probing for some kind of reconciliation meeting. I forward them to my lawyer. She sends back polite declinations. That's my financial boundary. Nothing flows between us anymore. No money, no favors, no obligations. That's my contact boundary. Everything goes through attorneys. If there's ever a genuine emergency, Lucia will find me. Meredith sent one email 3 months ago. Tessa, I'm not angry anymore. I think I understand now. I just wish things had been different. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just saying that I'm sorry. Your sister, if you still want me to be Meredith, I haven't replied. Not because I'm cruel, but because I don't know what to say yet. Maybe someday, maybe not. And that's okay. I have dinner with Mrs. Dot every Sunday. Lemon cake and tea and stories about the neighborhood I grew up in, seen through kinder eyes than my parents ever offered. I have a job I love, friends who've seen me at my worst and stayed anyway. I have peace. For 8 years, I believed that love meant endless sacrifice. That family meant accepting whatever was given, no matter how painful. That boundaries were selfishness disguised as strength. I was wrong. Boundaries aren't walls. They're windows. You choose when to open them. You choose who deserves the view. I'm not a scapegoat anymore. I'm not a basement tenant or a revenue stream or a cautionary tale. I'm just Tessa. And that's more than enough. If you made it this far, thank you. Truly, this story isn't about revenge. It's about truth. About learning that the people who should love you the most don't always treat you the best. And about finding the courage to say, I deserve better. If you're still in your basement, literal or figurative, I hope this gives you hope. You're not asking too much. You're not being selfish. You're being human. Subscribe if this story meant something to you, and check the description for another story about a woman who discovered her fiancé had 3 hidden bank accounts. Until next time.